Hey everyone. So, brand new album, A Portrait of Me-Self, can now be streamed here on my YouTube channel. And of course there's Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff, all that digital platform stuff. But you know, you're here on my YouTube channel and the songs are here. Go to my Chris Guy Music playlist because you're going to want to hear the songs in order, how I meant for them to be streamed, from Blue Whale all the way to Promised Land. If you hear them in the upload section, they're gonna be all out of order, and not really make sense, in my opinion. This always happens. I always want to upload them in order, and it just never happens. So go to the playlist where everything's in order there. It's the first playlist on top. You'll see it. So I'm trying to make this quick because I know my battery is kind of dying out already. So my daughter drew this. I told her, just draw me. See, whatever, however you want to draw me. You see the eyes right there, the mouth. These are actually fingerprints. So I've worked a little bit on Photoshop with inverting art, like inverting the colors. So I knew I wanted to invert the colors, and it always looks really cool when you do that, like on a white paper like this. So I threw blue glitter on there because I know the blue glitter is going to turn to white glitter. Or a very light glitter, and that's gonna look like a scene from the cosmos, like stars, you know, like Starry Night, nebula, and this is gonna turn to like a look of like a nebula and like just like, you know, interstellar cosmic dust and nebula like things. So yeah, and it did. It looked just like that actually, with, you know, me in the middle there. So I was very happy with that. If you haven't seen the cover yet, you'll see it right now. So yes, my daughter helped with that. Let's see what else. Okay, so the sequence. It starts off with Blue Whale and it ends with Promised Land. This album is 7 songs, and it's about 30 seconds longer. I believe about 30 seconds longer than my last album that had 8 songs. So I'll get to that right now. So you need to hear it in order because I ordered the album in a way that I've never done before. So I'm hearing all the songs, right? And granted, this is the album that I've never done this before. So I always have the cover art and the title before I finish the album. Usually like halfway through the production, I already have it. And it helps me, it steers me in the right way to like, okay, to try this or to try that, to match the look. But this time around, I'm like, I can't, you know, I threw some ideas away and just couldn't think of anything. So I'm like, okay, let's not go there right now. Let's finish the songs, fully finish them, and then let's see what I can think of, you know? So, you know, we did this about a week and a half ago, and came out with a title and the order of the songs. So it starts off with 3, I would say, lighthearted, feel-good kind of songs, like very cheery, Blue Whale, mid-tempo, rock and roll song. More than Sound, which is kind of like a pop rock, pop punk, dare I say, sort of song. One of I think the fastest song on the album, but still very jolly, very happy. October Sky is, may I even say, fluffy, kind of a ballad, a heartwarming kind of feel-good ballad. But it's happy, you know, and they all kind of go together well. Well, In the Visible Summer is the 4th song, and I think that's where the album hits its midpoint, and it's kind of changeover period. It's the one that takes you from the first sound to the next sound, and it's the most straight-ahead rock and roll song on the album, I think, and it takes you into the next part of the album, which I would call the outro, which is 3 songs that are almost like a rock opera almost. Like this, the lyrics are not connected in any sort of way to each other, but it does feel like they go well together, like they're almost connected in some way. The opera kicks it off, takes you to Leather Jacket, and then it ends with Promised Land. And it just feels like a little bit of a movement, you know, a movement of the album. It's 3 songs that sound like, in a way, a rock opera. I'm very proud of that little last movement of the album. And what's really cool is that when you finish the Promised Land, which has this mysterious mysterious, serious rock and roll feel, I think. You start the album over on Blue Well, and it feels nice to kind of like just refresh the sound with something happy and something feel good. So yeah, I've never really done that before. Usually I try to split the songs up and to where it's kind of a roller coaster, but this one's like this, and then this. You know, it's this and that with one song in the middle that kind of, you know, takes you from here to there. So let's see what else. Cover, the sequence. Started in March. You know, this year's crazy, so I'm like, I gotta make an album now, or else I'm not gonna have an album in 2 years. Because Never That's When with 2018. I did Lighthouse last year in November, but with just one song for last year. And so I'm like, okay, I gotta get started now, because it takes about an album can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months, depending on what kind of album it is. So I kind of wanted to go with something a little bit more raw. Never That's When has a sound that's kind of also kind of this little like classic rock sound, but it's a little different in that it's a little bit more, what's the right word to use? So I record with Pro Tools, and I, on both of the albums, played the drums, so I play all the instruments on my albums, but on Never That's When, I played to a click track and I edited the drums to where the timing is perfect. You know, it's on the grid. It's quantized to the grid until everything's on time all the way through. With this album, I did something that I've never done before, because even the Axe album before, which is 2016, I played the drums, and that's the lo-fi album. And what I did was I played piece by piece by piece, so that the timing never really speeds up or slows down. If I mess up, then I just kind of rewind it and start right there, and so I make sure that the whole song is just the same all the way through. It's not on a click, but it's very close all the way through. This album, I started toying with the idea of, like, excuse me, like, I'm just one person recording the instruments, but when you play with a band and you're in a room and you're playing these songs, and you know, adrenaline is kicking, and you get excited playing the songs, what happens is you start to maybe speed up, or there's just this energy. If you're in a band, you know what I'm talking about. And that's something that excites me, and I can't do. It's just me. But I started toying with that idea. Like, there's so many perfect recordings out there nowadays, so many. And while I always tend to, you know, if you watch my video blogs, I talk about appreciating what you have, trying to make the most of what you have. And sometimes I try to get a polished sound. Sometimes I go for lo-fi. Sometimes I go for like a garagey sound. Well, this time I wanted to go for something that was very exciting and raw, but that serves the song. You know, there's a lot of recordings out there where the drums sound like explosive devices. You know, that each tom is like this super compressed, where everything just sounds huge. You know, and there's a lot of that. And you know, I wouldn't probably be able to get the best of that sound even if I tried. You know, pretty much what you hear in rock music, like on the big labels. I'm like, well, I've been listening to the Rolling Stones a lot lately. I've been listening to the Beatles a lot lately, the Ramones, and I'm like, well, I listen to those drums, and they kind of sound like drums. You know, they sound, even though back in those days they were using the state-of-the-art best equipment of the day. So I know they weren't going for a lo-fi sound. It's just kind of what they had and the best stuff they had back then. But you know, looking back on that and listening to it today compared to what we have today, you definitely can have that sort of vibe, you know. And in order to get that sort of sound, I was thinking, okay, let's see, I'm not going to use 8 to 9 mics on my drums. I'm going to use like 2, you know, to get that sound. And so that's what I went for, something very raw, something very like that I feel like if I could possibly recreate the Chris Sky sound with like to sound almost like a band, what could I do, right? So what I thought of is like, don't be too hard on the timing. Like, obviously, yeah, if the speed up is ridiculous, then it's like, and it doesn't serve the song, then obviously I would start again. And it was quite difficult because how much speed up, how much lag do I allow in the album to give it some sort of attitude, and when do I say, no, that's too much, you know? So it was a little challenging. And it wasn't just with tempos. It was also with guitar and bass. Like I'm usually very like, okay, I tune every like 30 seconds or a minute, and that's kind of drives me crazy. But you know, I've never had a problem with tuning on the albums. Everything's always well in tune. Now, when you make songs, I mean, when you make productions, you'll realize, and you hear all these different bands, and you'll run into songs that have a certain attitude, a certain vibe, and you'll notice that maybe the bass is a little flat or a little sharp, and you would think it's a problem, but if it serves the style of the song or serves the rock and roll feel, then there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's all within the note. It's all within, you know, little semitones off from each other. So I toyed with that, and that was difficult too, because I mean, okay, the bass is a little sharp there, or is it a little flat there? After a while, you start losing like, I'm using my tuner, but it's just, where was I? Where was I? Okay, and there was several times where I had to go back and like, all right, that's a little too much, or so I would say it was actually more difficult doing it this way. It's actually one of the reasons why about halfway through the album I wasn't sure whether I should release this. And on my Instagram I actually announced that the album was canceled a while back. And then a couple days later I had a good sleep and said, no, I'm gonna keep working on it. So I'm glad I did. That always happens about halfway through an album. Like you start questioning yourself and, you know, should I? But this time around it got to me and I actually announced it. So anyways, I left the posts up just because it's, you know, history. And it is what it is what it is, right? So let's see. That's the feel of the album. I'm not saying that if I wanted to reach for perfection that I could reach it, but it is a mindset. You know, it does take a certain mindset to say, no, do that again because it needs to be more closer to perfect, right? So this album, that was not the case. It was what sounds right to me. What makes it sound a little bit more classic, more rock, more just something that makes me happy, that makes me say that's what I'm going for. So you have 7 songs that are exactly what I intended, and you'll hear some speed ups. You're gonna hear them. I won't mention which songs. You find it for yourself, and hopefully it just created 7 unique songs. You know, I'm a DIY artist, and I'll end with this. I'm a fan of music, and sometimes it's quite humbling to see music on the internet, music like on YouTube or Facebook, whatever viral video is, you know, out there, and you see just amazing musicians like virtuosos and recordings that are just like insanely good, music videos that are insanely clear and good and expensive. Or video bloggers that vlog about music, like Rick Beato on YouTube. That's whose knowledge is just intimidating, you know. And granted, I'm learning from him, and I'm learning from all these people. But it can be a little intimidating to be like, wait, should I even make an album? Am I good enough to make an album? And I just want to tell people that are in similar situations as me that feel that way, that music, no matter how complicated it is or how easy it is, it's still just sound. It's still just sound, even though there's theory and there's rules. Even though there's all this stuff that makes sense that's being taught, and that's definitely worth learning. You know, at your own pace, of course, and wherever you see you want whatever it is you want to learn. It's still true that music is like sound, and it's just something you listen to. And technically, you know, if I wanted to get on the guitar and just make a song on one note, I could. You know, there's nothing to stop me from doing that and say it's music, because it is. It's and so the reason I say that is because is to tell people that maybe feel intimidated, they don't want to go forward to release an album, you know, because why would you when there's like all these greats everywhere? Because you just don't. Well, first of all, do yourself the favor and do it because it feels great to do it. It's liberating to make music, and it's therapeutic to make music and to listen to it yourself. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm happy with the music that I made. I'm a fan of the music that I make. Because, for one, there's nothing wrong with being happy with what you made, because nobody really knows, you know, the rules of life. Like, if you want to be happy with the music you made, I would think that's amazing. It's better than being depressed with the music you made. You know, granted, I'm not saying to just throw anything out there and like it or love it. I do believe you should work hard to get the best thing you could possibly do and release that. And all I'm saying is to be a fan of your work. Don't hold back, you know, because you're intimidated, because it's just sound. It's just sound at the end of the day, and don't underestimate the fact that a lot of things. I mean, a lot of the force that makes someone like your music is not just the music. It really is not. Like, you can play like something really crazy on a guitar or a bass, and someone would have to say, "Oh wow," right? But that's different. That's a shock value. Just the way you would see a viral video and have a shock value towards it. It doesn't mean that's necessarily going to, you know, get in your spirit and change your life, or make you feel something that's gonna stick with you for a long time. You know, sometimes you may forget the viral video you just saw. So you may forget the virtuoso scales you just heard. Nothing wrong with that. It's just, it's not always everything. You know, it could be for you, but it's also, if that's not what you do, it doesn't mean you can't do something. There's a lot of room for a lot of different kinds of music and different kinds of artists. You could play the same chords and sing similar melodies and make it sound completely different because you're different, you know, and that's just how it works. So while I can feel intimidated, I know at the end of the day I have enough of a catalog and enough of a past with my music to say, hey, look, you know, I'm Chris Guy here, and I have a style, and it may be simple. It may be simple to some people, and, you know, not everyone will like it, but it's the vision that I have, and I think I deserve to release it. And if no one's gonna like it, well, I like it. At the end of the day, I work hard enough to know that I like it at the very least, and that makes me happy. So I think that's worth something. But if you're feeling that way, intimidated, just know that at the end of the day, it's all BS. I mean, it really is. Someone could hear something and someone could tell that person, hey, look at this song. It's not that good, right? And then that person's being influenced to say, yeah, you're right, it's not that good, right? Or someone could say, listen to this, it's really good. And then the person that's being, you know, that's all ears is like, yeah, it's really good. A lot of music works like that. Unfortunately, it's a lot of he said, she said. You know, obviously, like I said already, there's certain things that are tried and true, but it doesn't mean that anyone's gonna get a fan base just because, you know, the music is good. There's a lot of other stuff that goes into it. Timing, how you carry yourself, the word I hate the most in music, branding, but it is a real thing. All that sort of stuff, like, matters, you know, and I make it sound like it takes a long time. It doesn't have to. Sometimes people can be unknown one day and a huge, you know, sensation in a couple of weeks later. Like, it just depends. But that's furthermore one of the reasons why, if you're feeling like you're scared to do something, don't, you know, just go forward and do your best. And that's pretty much all I can say. Making albums is one of the funnest things. It's one of the most tedious things, and it's one of the things that at the halfway mark, I'm always like, I just want to finish this thing, you know, but I also know that I got to take my time, and it usually starts to blossom by the middle of the production. And if I don't start it right, well, then I have to start over, and so I don't want to do that. So over the years, I've gotten better at starting right. It's a very important thing. Make sure you start the album right. Because if you're halfway through, you're like, this isn't working, and you're gonna have to start all over again. You don't want to polish something that shouldn't be polished. You know, you want to start again. So I've gotten better over the years at this is what I want to do, and I make sure the foundation is good, and then I go from there. And, you know, I get depressed, and I feel like it's not worth anything, and then usually the light starts to enter the room, and I start understanding what I'm doing, and by the time it's done, I really like the album. It's awesome, and now I can drop it for you all and go forward from there. So I hope everybody likes the album. You know, of course, that's the dream, that people like the album and have things to say about the album in this day and age where, you know, it's all about likes and, you know, sometimes no likes, or even unlikes, which is, you know, kind of sad, but it is what it is. It's your opinion. but a comment about the song is the best, because it's like you make the art and it just feels nice when people are talking about something that at one point was just up here, and like that's creation right there, you know. It feels nice, and that's another reason why you shouldn't hold back if you really want to make music. That creation process, it's worth it. You deserve it. Do it. And if you're holding back, you're not getting better at it. So the more you do it, you know, don't let that stop you either, because you know, it takes time. No, because sometimes, let me tell you, sometimes your first songs have things that your later songs that you're polished, that are more polished, and you know, you're more of a veteran at doing whatever craft it is. Sometimes those don't have some of the things that your first ones will have. So you got to see it that way, that even though it's a learning process, some of your first stuff may actually have stuff that's actually really cool. Like I'll look back to some of my first stuff, like Mixed Up in Hollywood, which was my first album as a solo artist. I'll listen to it and I'm like, man, I don't make lyrics like that anymore, you know. And even if I tried, I probably couldn't make lyrics like that anymore. So I look back on it, I'm like, well, that's kind of cool, you know. It's almost like, it's not that you get better, it's just you evolve, you know. Something like that. You probably do get better the more you do things, but it doesn't mean the stuff you do in the beginning is not worth something, and actually can't teach your later self something, you know, looking back on it. So anyways, I'm blabbering now. I hope everyone enjoys the album. It's on YouTube, of course, Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff. Yes, album is done. A Portrait of Me Self. Till next time, rock on.